Welcome to the West Coast Sojourn Podcast. I am Donnell Alexander.
I am Lev Anderson.
And I'm talking to you from Sacramento. Lev's up in Portland. This is the West Coast Sojourn Podcast. How you doing, dude?
I'm good. How was your weekend?
I'm great, man. I was thinking about our guest today, Gabriel San Ramon, a little bit. I'm trying to do my homework and write about him, but I've got this other writing gig that's kind of crazy. I'm actually writing about the thing I can't write about this week without writing about it.
Sounds intriguing.
You know what I'm doing. I always say if there's something amazing that comes out, comes from someone you never heard of, it'll be this project because I'm not putting my name on it.
Right. I'm looking forward to Walter P. Little's piece.
What did you do this weekend?
Well, my sister hosted her annual pie social. Everybody makes a pie or a cobbler, brings it to her house, and we all eat them. And then I also worked, there's the local record store here in Portland. It's been around since the late 60s, Music Millennium. And they had their annual customer appreciation barbecue where they have like lots of free food and drink. I was pouring Stumptown coffee, cold brew. There's beer, food, and then live music. And Terry always gets some interesting bands together to do that, local bands. But the cool thing about that barbecue is, there was only one time where I actually worked a lot at Music Millennium, and that was my senior year in high school back 92, 93. And that year, Garth Brooks came out, old country singer Garth Brooks. I forget his other alter ego name. But he...
Ooh, tough dig.
Yeah, maybe we'll come up with it. And but he had come out and said he didn't want record stores selling used products of his. He wanted people to pay full price for his records or tapes and CDs and all that. And Terry and the record shop, being champions of indie record stores and obviously, having to be able to sell used stuff is vital to their business, decided to have a barbecue where they burned all his merchandise in this barbecue and then gave out free food and drinks to everybody that came through. And to this day, you cannot buy any Garth Brooks product at Music Millennium. I don't know if Garth Brooks ever apologized or whatnot, but apparently it doesn't matter because you cannot buy anything at Music Millennium of Garth Brooks.
Very nice.
And then so over the years, it just turned into a customer appreciation thing. And so this was 25th year or something, or 24th year. And Terry's, actively trying to sell the store. So I don't know if it was the last one or what's going on.
Wow. I want to ask whether or not that's where you do it. Because I've been to Music Millennium, but I've not been to the Customer Appreciation Day. Where does it happen?
It's in the back. There's a small parking lot that they have. And so they set a stage up, and then they have other little tents kind of crammed in there.
Okay, I don't even know that I've even stepped back there. It's like a front door action. But that's my old neighborhood, when I was with the artist formerly known as Erico.
You live right up there, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I've seen you in the store, but the Laurelhurst, that's a really Portlandy kind of Portland. As you tell this story, and I want to talk all the serious business with our guest today, with San Ramon, but those are super Portlandy things you did. I was at that first one, I was thinking they should send that to Fox News and say this is what we do here in Portland rather than Rampage.
Yeah,
but you don't have to have Fox News' appreciation.
While the fires are burning in the streets, or there's rioters in the streets, we eat our pie.
You've got your sense of perspective. What do you want to tell people about our guest?
Well, Gabriel San Ramon, California writer, about a lot about labor, progressive histories, kind of along the vein of the great Howard Zinn, getting into these alternative histories of the United States that we don't find in our textbooks. And he's written a new book called Days of Dissent, which kind of, takes each day in the calendar year of and says, okay, this happened on January 2nd, 1943, and it's there's so much in there that I've never heard of. Things that had happened, or things that it's good to be reminded of. And I think part of, these books and stuff, it's not like, they're convincing us to be progressives necessarily, or convincing us of the need of, social racial justice. But it's just they're kind of these reminders of like what we're up against constantly, and what people have been up against, and what people have triumphed over too. Sometimes we forget about the progress part of progressiveness. So
Good line there. I love that he's an Orange County Mexican. He's the features writer, LC features writer for the LA Times. And we have kind of a low-key thematic exploration of the minority communities of Orange County. Um, Between him and Gustavo Ariano, do you feel like you're getting a really good range of voices from the Latino community down there?
the journalistic Latino community, what's that?
Are you getting any new perspectives on?
I think so. I mean, I think I'm always getting new perspectives. I mean, Gustavo's great with what he does because he's so tapped into the culture there. And I think I mean, when I was living in Orange County, I was in Irvine, which of all the cities in Orange County has the lowest Latino percentage population, even though it's right next to Santa Ana, which is like the biggest like Latino population concentration in the United States, I think.
Mhm.
So, as much as I'd like to think I'm open minded and interacting with these folks, when I was in Irvine, I wasn't so much, especially when I didn't have a car. So I'm always trying to learn something, or at least being open to it. And those guys both have a great perspective. I mean, they're writers, they're journalists, so they come from a certain segment of that community. But there's so much going on down there,
Yeah,
and it's nice to peel back a couple of the layers at least.
yeah, and then just in a more broad sense, I think our guests will know that Gabriel is pretty much far left, pretty progressive, and I would classify Gustavo as a libertarianish stuff. I'm arguing with his politics a little more, and I love that we're having these arguments in a way that are, when I disagree with Gustavo, it's kind of clear, but I'm not fighting with him.
Right.
Yeah, we're getting great lessons on how to communicate with each other. I think we actually know how just the internet and cable news has kind of confused people. Are you ready to talk to our guy?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to some more Days of Dissent.
Days of Dissent. This is a people's history. Welcome to the West Coast Sojourn Podcast. I'm Donnell Alexander.
And I am Lev Anderson.
Yeah, and we're here with the features writer from the OC. Oh, I was going to say OC Weekly, man. That's how old school I go back.
Yeah, Tom's OC.
Yeah, one of those, that crazy little newspaper known as the LA Times. Perhaps you've heard of it. Gabriel San Ramon. How about it? How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for the invitation to be on this program, and looking forward to chopping it up about Days of Dissent.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so you've put out this book, Days of Dissent, and it it's almost like a calendar of sorts. Like it talks about progressive revolutionary history, things that have happened in the past on each day of the month. And you go through the calendar, and it's I mean, I'm not a progressive historian expert, but there's some stuff that I had heard of and a lot of stuff I hadn't heard of. A lot of labor history, a lot of stuff around like immigration and racism and the absolute brutal genocide against Native Americans, especially because that's stuff you don't get in your history books. I'd like to just start, you do talk in the intro to your book, you talk about the Texas Board of Education.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if people know, but the Texas Board of Education plays this outside role in determining textbooks for the rest of the country because they're such a big state that whatever they kind of get approved kind of becomes like a default text for other states and throughout the country. I mean, California might do their own thing, but so many other public schools, rely on texts to get approved by the Texas School Board. So can you talk a little bit about the politics of how these history texts get to put together for our school and why you felt like it was important to do a book like Days of Dissent?
Sure. I start the book off with a story that connects with a lot of readers from what I gathered so far. My grandmother, over a century ago, was at a grammar school in El Paso, Texas, and she was being instructed about the Texas Revolution. And so, as an elementary kid, she basically came across a passage. It had to be in reference to the Battle of San Jacinto, and San Jacinto is where Sam Houston defeated the Mexican army, avenged the Alamo, the defeat at the Alamo, and it was like under 18 minutes or something like that. Enshrined military fact, nobody's haggling that. But it said, Houston defeated the cowardly Mexicans. My grandmother, being Mexican, took offense to that and ripped the page out and got sent to the principal's office for that. It's kind of like the beginning of Dead Poet Society, where the teacher just rips out the poetry explanation page.
Mm.
So she was basically defying the enshrined tale of Texas at that point. And unfortunately, all these decades later, the standards really haven't, and the discussions and the debates haven't really moved all that much in an opposite direction.
How so?
Well, let me see here. When I referred to the book about this squabble over value charge words, there was an effort to streamline social studies, and that was an effort that just kind of like took a look at the words and descriptions and to see what was outdated, what didn't fit the curriculum is for social studies. And the word heroic came into play with regards to the Alamo and the insurrection at the Alamo, and then the leaders of the Alamo in the Texas Revolution were heroic. And so this body that was streamlining the book or the textbook said, that's a values charged word. We're going to dispense with it. And then that became a polarizing thing because, Governor Greg Abbott said, of course, the Alamo defenders were heroic. They were, and kids need to learn history in that vein. Houston wasn't a part of the defending the Alamo, but those that were, especially those in position of leadership, were slave owners. And so how do you have a conversation about the value of historical figures and just being like so default setting to saying they were heroic when they owned slaves, when the takeover of Texas, it basically was motivated by expanding slavery. That was like the jump off for the book, is that I have a family history that is intertwined with how history is perceived. And like Lev was saying, Texas is not only just symbolic of the struggle over memory, but also is a big state that determines how youngsters learn history about the U.S. And so it seemed like a logical place to really start the conversation.
Is this the book? Is this the book for younger people? Oh, who is it for?
I think younger.
I asked that because the format is so approachable.
Mm-hmm.
No one's going to get hung up on anything. Who's it for?
It's for everybody. I want to reach out to everybody. It's not like a young people's history of the United States and world history, but it's also not an academic textbook that's going to, be in the library of the university that isn't trying to reach a critical mass.
Right.
So the aim here is popular education about the past, and popular meaning as many people as possible.
Can you give us again, just for people who haven't seen the book, what the structure is like, what the format is?
Sure. It's definitely what we would call in journalism a format buster. We used to do those all the time at OC Weekly. Instead of a traditional kind of chronology storyline, basically this is a story that's this is a book that's organized by the calendar, the Gregorian calendar. There's a vignette for every day of the year plus the leap year. And basically from that kind of structure, my point was to not author an almanac per se, but to inject storytelling into these to make them vignettes. I mean, I want to give the reader just the foundational facts, but I also want to dramatize without embellishing what happened on that particular day in history. So people are going to see, when they read the book, they'll see, vignettes about this particular day in history that are 200 to 600 words. There was a book in 2009 that was really highly influential to this whole endeavor called Mirrors by the late Eduardo Galeano. And he really artistically employed the vignette as a literary device for world history. And I'm not imitating that because I don't have that skill set. But I am definitely inspired by it. And so that's the structure of the book. It's calendrical. It's storytelling. It's based in storytelling. And yeah, the aim is to be accessible. I don't want to be trapped in the language of academia. I don't want to be trapped in the formal kind of language that has kind of taken over the way leftists talk about history and politics. I want to pull people in from whatever their kernel of understanding is. Right. And I think language is a critical key of that.
Yeah. Well, Lev brought up some stuff earlier that we should probably talk about on there. What were we thinking about August? You had a couple things.
Well, we're doing this interview in August, audience. This it might not come out until later this week, but we picked out a couple dates. Maybe the first one, just so we can talk about getting people a little deeper sense. Mm-hmm. August 3rd, which is today, the hop pickers at Durst Ranch in California. Mm. And could you tell us just briefly about what that day was like?
Sure. So August 3rd, I just read this morning. Some people have told me that they just read one vignette per day. So it'll take them a whole year to get through the book. And I endorse that. I really do. I think that's a totally great way to read the book. But turning to the Wheatland Hop Riot, basically this was an episode in California agricultural history where there was a unionization effort that was led by the industrial workers of the world, the IWW, the Wobblies, as they were popularly known. And the conditions at the Wheatland Ranch were just deplorable. They worked in the heat and then they slept out in the open close to the ranch. And so the wages were also a principal concern. Some of the workers had tents and they could kind of weather the elements of the nighttime, cold weather in the summer. But most of them didn't even have, if they were sleeping out in the open, they didn't have blankets. Sanitary conditions were atrocious. Water was not anything you'd want to willingly drink. And the bathrooms were deplorable. And so here you have a union organizer that is trying to organize these hop pickers on the ranch. And it leads to just another bloody chapter of the struggle between labor and capital. And, two of the unionists were tried and convicted for second-degree murder. Some of the people, there was 4 deaths in total, including, city officials. And so they didn't entirely, as the vignette says, they didn't die in vain because the Wheatland Hop Riot led to a greater understanding of agricultural labor conditions. And, it wasn't a totally in vain effort. But, that was in its point in time. If we forget about it, then we're contributing to those deaths being meaningless and that fight and that effort to organize losing meaning over time. So it's an interesting part of California history. I think that, it bears remembrance and it teaches us. Yeah, and we definitely, as one of the top 5 economies in the world, just the state of California, are so heavily reliant on agriculture. And the conditions are such that unionization is a constant conversation. And it's only getting hotter. I mean, I was thinking in in real time when I reread the vignette this morning that, if you're sleeping out in the open and you need a blanket, I mean, this summer's been pretty brutal. It's changed over a century and it doesn't get that cold at night anymore. But back then, that was part of the conditions of being a worker at this particular ranch. And, it's just it's something that we would read and then we'd say, well, how does this translate to now?
That's exactly what I was going to ask you as you were going into this, because we're in a moment right now where there, and you saw how easily I jumped in there. I was just waiting to get to that part. I feel like we're in this moment where unless I'm talking to somebody who's a DSA, I see a lot of depression. And as I start going through these things, I feel like there's a way to use this book in a way that's reinforcing. Tell me where you are with all of this.
You mean there's a way to use the book when because like I was saying how kind of emotionally exhausted I am, but you're saying there's other ways to use the book. Is that what you said to know?
I definitely didn't feel emotionally exhausted because the people who are doing this stuff. I mean, granted, times there's some sort of the enemy that is Trump is so much more powerful than anything we've up against. But so many of these people in these stories are regular people,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the way that we communicate is so dehumanized and mechanized through our screens and whatnot. I found a little bit of am I wrong here to be reading this book this way? There's a lot of great shit that's been done by regular folks.
Well, I mean, I looked to the blurb on the front of the book from Chanda Prescott Weinstein, and she says this is a guide for when our, faith wobbles. And so, the way that she read it, the way that she endorsed the work was that this is a text you could turn to when things are feeling down and you realize that a through line of history was people fighting back against oppressive conditions. And so you're going to encounter bravery, courage against the odds time and time again. And what I wanted to contribute, in this 250th year of the United States of America is create a space within these, front and back covers where all kinds of movements are in conversation with the reader, even if they weren't in history. So if you have a strong point in, Black history and the Black freedom struggle, there's plenty of that in this book because that is foundational to my education. Likewise, the labor movement and the struggles of workers is also foundational to my historical worldview. But those two particular pillars of change in the United States have not always been intersected, or they've been running parallel, or they've clashed against each other. I mean, there's also episodes of the book.
Wait, slow down there, right there. I don't know that everyone knows what you mean when you say that there about that intersection.
Well, I mean, there was, when you look at from a historical perspective at the U.S. labor movement, there's clear-cut there's a clear-cut racist history, and the color line extends into the picket line in a sense, because there was efforts, some of the instances of white violence in the book that are recounted are from workers against another ethnic group. Whether it's a massacre of Chinese miners in Wyoming, an expulsion of Japanese agricultural workers in Turlock, California, or African Americans being used as scab labor by white bosses to manipulate the labor struggles of largely white unions. So this is a common thing that when you look at history, you'll encounter time and time again. But you also see figures like A. Philip Randolph, Black socialist labor leader. And you also have the historical example of the improbable example of the New Orleans general strike in the late 19th century, where Black and white workers refused to crater along these familiar tactics of racism. And there was a general strike that involved, 3 key unions. And it was in the South. Like, that is a shining example of something that doesn't often happen in history. And that's documented in this book. So I hope when people are considering the through line as they're going through the vignettes and the days in history, that some puzzle pieces start to fit together. And that's I think that's something that I hope the reader really appreciates about the work and takes away from it, is that you have an opportunity to see episodic history and these moments of radical change one way or another, from all different facets of U.S. society and even outside of the borders of the U.S., where it concerns foreign policy or the histories from other countries that people immigrate into the U.S. with. So it's intentional. It's very intentional that I laid out and curated the episodes that I did.
Okay. Can I ask about August 21st and
Sure.
Huey P. Newton? I
Absolutely.
saw this, some of the, a reprint of it in the Berkeley Barb. I thought that was interesting.
A reprint of Huey's speech.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is a great example of what I was.
It was a New York speech.
Yeah. It was just a great example of what I just referenced. So, Huey P. Newton, of course, chair of the Black Panther Party, charismatic leader out of Oakland. And so when we turn to August 21st, he gave a speech in New York called A Letter from Huey to the Revolutionary Brothers and Sisters about the women's liberation and gay liberation movements. And so as a Black Power leader, he's reaching out to the feminist movement that's taking place at that time in the late 60s, and the early iterations of the LGBTQ movement as well. And he's saying we need to retire certain words from our vocabulary in this speech. And one of them is punk. The other one is another expletive I won't say here. But he's basically saying, as a leader of the Black Power movement, we have things in common. We have a common struggle, and our language should change and be reflective of that. And I think one point that I argue in this particular recounting from this day is that, the Black freedom struggle has been unfairly maligned as more sexist and more homophobic than others. And here you have a classic example of a charismatic leader, one of the most important leaders of the late 60s in the US, basically reaching out to the gay rights movement and the women's movement.
Okay, so I'm going to contest this because I think I can.
Okay.
Come on, dude. I mean, my people, my Black men, brethren, are pretty homophobic and kind of sexist compared to most movements on the left. I mean, I wasn't there, but I know me some niggas, is what I'm trying to say.
But I mean, it's not like
Huey was an exceptional leader in so many ways, but I think I can say this is one of his less successful campaigns, I would say. Yeah. Well, anyway, fight me.
No, I'm not gonna push back at all. I think if you even just critically look into the Black Panther Party and the issues of sexism within it, there was if you listen to Elaine Brown and others, you're going to hear their perspective, and it's going to give you more historical nuance. And the same is true of like the Magonistas, the left-wing Mexican anarchists of the early 1900s. Like, they were very sexist in their writings, openly sexist. But I still think that this speech in New York, which was reprinted in the Panther newspaper, is important to return to, to think critically about, to understand that here was a plea for what was later coined intersectionality. And I just think that deserves to be remembered. And because of the narratives that are out there, it came from the leader of the Black Panther Party.
Yeah.
And that's came from.
I think about it like, if you're a young queer Black dude in Oakland or the Bay Area, and it's 1966, I don't know what year this was, but I think you have this message that you are welcome. Whereas, I mean, I think like if you go down to the leadership of the traditional Black church in the South, you have leaders who are queer and like Baird Russ, obviously. But I think if we were really being real, a documentary I'd love to make. I mean, it's destructive, it's not helpful, but I'm interested in how many people were kind of shed to the side because of their sexuality. Anyway.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you watch that Rustin movie, Dano?
I did. Well, what's his name's in it? The dude is all famous now.
Well, right, yeah. Coleman Domingo.
Coleman Domingo, yeah.
Yeah,
Rustin really, I mean, Rustin always was just like he was like the underground favorite for civil rights figures, you know, because he did all that low key engineering. And I mean, as a writer, you have to love what he did. But yeah, huge fan.
You know, I mean, kind of speaking